right, y'all ready to get started?
Right, let's kick it off.
Cool. Well, welcome everybody. Thank you everyone for joining us for the Chief in Tech Summit for today and tomorrow. I will be moderating. My name is Nancy Coblenz, and today we're going to be talking about leadership in digital transformation. I will have the ladies introduce themselves, but I am super excited to have some heavy hitters in the room. We have some legitimate subject matter experts, and I want all of you that are joining us to please send us your questions. I'll be watching all the questions, and we'll have some Q&A afterwards, but no question is off the table. I want these ladies to dig in. So whatever your burning questions are, please ask them, all right? Let me get started, and I'll just kind of introduce myself and get that out of the way. I'm Nancy. I am Vice President of Marketing for ActOne Group. We are a multi-billion-dollar recruiting firm out of Los Angeles, and I'm head of marketing for 19 of their sister companies. So anything you want to talk about marketing, leadership, I got you after this, and would love to connect with you on LinkedIn, so please add me. And let's go with Monica.
Sure. Thank you, Nancy. I'm super excited to be here. So myself, Monica Bajaj, I'm the VP of Engineering at Okta, which is a leader in identity and security space. And I have been in the industry for over a decade now, primarily focused on engineering, and had the fortune for leading, scaling globally distributed teams and technologies in multiple industries, especially in consumer enterprise space, like Workday, Ultimate Software. I also work for infrastructure space at NetApp and Cisco, and security space as well. And currently at Okta, I'm leading the developer experience product portfolio for customer identity and access management. Outside work, I'm really passionate about giving back to the community, and I'm very active as a board member on nonprofits, and also doing a lot of mentoring and speaking events across the industry.
Thank you, Monica. All right, Michelle, you're up. One more time. There you go.
There we go. You think that you'd know this after a while. Hi, I'm Michelle Joliet. I'm the Senior Managing Director of Product and Delivery at Ontario Teachers Pension Plan. And for those of you who don't know where Ontario is, I'm based here in Toronto. And Teachers is a global investor with 240 billion assets under management. And we serve about 333,000 teachers in Ontario. So I have a background in technology, so undergrad and a Master of Science and an MBA. And I spent the first 12 years of my career in management consulting. The next 10, I was the accountable executive for digitization, digital robotics and process transformation at two of Canada's largest banks, so RBC and BMO. In 2014, BMO or RBC started using agile technology, and I was the leader that was chosen to develop and grow this capability and methodology and team. And the work that we did actually landed us a Global Private Banking Award for the best initiative of the year in relationship management technology. I helped build RBC's Agile Center of Excellence. And then I moved on to BMO, where I also did a similar function and developing the client portal for the investment advisory business, online brokerage, and both the Canadian and US private banks. I built the robotics function there, and then I moved over to Teachers about 2.5 years ago, where I led a complete restructuring of the enterprise operations division. So about 720 people in the delivery function, technology, and D&I to move to a product model. So to really serve our business partners a lot better and work with them, do full transparency of technology delivery, cost efficiency, speed to value, and all that sort of thing. I can tell you about all the functions that I run, but that's not that exciting. I've been really lucky to receive a few awards, including Canada's Tech Titan Top 19 of 2019. And that was looking at the prominent innovative technology leaders of the year. I've received Outstanding Achievement of the Year at the 2019 Women in Finance Awards, as well as Women of the Year at the IT Awards Canada in 2019. Same thing, I'm super passionate about giving back. I'm also on the board of not-for-profits and have been for about 11 years. I coach both of my kids' baseball teams, and I'm the Women at Teachers ERG leader. So I'm really passionate about women in technology and women in business. And so hopefully there'll be some really good questions on leadership here today.
Thank you so much, Michelle. And last, absolutely not least, Edwidge, would you please introduce yourself?
Absolutely. So believe you are worth fighting for. I always want to start with this because my name is Edwige Robinson. I landed in the United States over 26 years ago. And can you believe it, without able to speak any word in English? I had the privilege today of leading a team of over 5,000 people comprised of employee and partners and contractors to design, deploy, and maintain the largest and fastest 5G network in the world. Because of my passion for strategy and technology, I'm always at the inception of new tech, of new innovation. And I love to guide organizations to learn the intricacies of technology so that we can actually deliver new system, and it allows them to have extraordinary results. I'm a mother of 4 beautiful young men, and more importantly, I'm called a triple minority in technology, and I love to become a beacon of hope for many of you. Thank you.
Amazing. Well, as you can tell, these leaders are more than just career driven. They're absolute inspirations. So I wanted to kind of head into our first question. So Monica, how do you define digital transformation? And as a leader, how do you influence this initiative?
So when we look at digital transformation, to me, it seems like a loaded word. And in itself, when it is combined with leadership, it becomes multifold. And the way I look at digital transformation is a part of the evolving world. It's a combination of adding technologies, areas of businesses to operate, deliver high value to our customers. But at the same time, as a leader, it is really, really important to keep yourself grounded and build a culture where employees feel safe and also comfortable in every situation. Because digital transformation can be very, very heavy, and it can create a lot of anxiety amongst the people who are a part of this journey as well. And if you look at the elements of digital transformation, I bucketize into multiple sectors. One is the customer experience, which is really important. The second is operational agility, which you want to drive through that. Culture and leadership is equally important. Workforce enablement, and then digital technology adoption and integration, which is super critical. So I will say, like, as a digital leader, it has never been as important and urgent than this time. And I'm sure we all know that pandemic has taught us so many things across the board that we need to cultivate a growth mindset. You know, digital transformation is one piece, but having a growth mindset, having an ability to evolve as a leader, not just the technology part, but individually evolving ourselves is super, super critical as the world is changing. So it's really important to encourage your teams to adopt a growth mindset and lead by example. That's really, really important. The second thing is how to respond with urgency and priority as a part of this transformation. That's really important. Third one is empathy, which is super, super critical, no matter what. So it's really, really important that when we are looking at the tasks, we get grounded, understand the deliverables, and we tend to forget the overall employee experience at times, which is really, really important to understand. And then your own leadership. So your own leadership is, you need to evaluate and assess your leadership at every move, and should not believe that you are right at all times. So that's really important. And then transparency, because organizations are super big, and it's really important that the more you over communicate, the more transparent you are in terms of your actions and deliverables and results, it really helps to drive things. So these are some of the elements which I would really focus on.
I love that, Monica. Thank you so much. I would also probably add authenticity to all of this. I mean, with transparency, I think you have to marry that with being authentic and being true to yourself. And it takes, I believe, a lot of courage as women within business and in executive leadership roles that we're in to have that courage to be ourselves regardless and be unwavering. So I think that's something, just a mental note for those that are watching too. Thank you for that. Edwidge, so what is the relationship between change management and digital transformation, and where do you think the future is going?
Oh, super. So first of all, thank you, Monica. Monica kind of like encapsulate what DT is and what everybody's experiencing. But I love the fact that you say you need to first get grounded. What is change management and what is the correlation to DT? So change management is the intricacy that we use in order to provide people the detail with the change we're going to be going through. It's like a life journey. And I love to take the example when I talk to team about when you have to make a change in a Word document. You add track changes, and then at the end, you can figure out all the change that took place and what you want to keep and what you want to move forward with. So it's to help people understand that we're not going to be left behind. We're not going to be left in the dark. That you're going to use all the intricacy of the system to communicate clearly, as Monica mentioned earlier, but you're also giving the information. Then you want to align that to digital transformation, which is simply utilizing improvement for the processes, improving the way that people work, and the technology associated with that so that you can improve the business outcome. So when you connect both of them, you can create amazing results. But more importantly, you are changing your organization through that process. People are also changing, they are improving. And the fun thing of it, as you mentioned, what happened in the future when digital transformation is done, it never ends, right? It is a journey. And I love this new word that I learned a couple of days ago, which is continuous next. Because you never stop growing. And the future, even though we're going to have AI, we're going to have machine learning, we're going to have all the different way of upskilling and right-skilling people. At the end of the day, we always have to be, as an organizational leader, we always have to be in the future waiting for our customer to get there. So you always have to be in the next and the next and the next. So this is how we do the correlation with digital transformation and change management. But more importantly, is to encourage everybody, the future will never end. And this is one thing that I want people to take away.
Thank you, Edwige. So I'm going to add to that question, another question to that, which is, it's one thing as all of us that we're here, we're technologists and we embrace and live in innovation on a daily basis, right? And so how do we actually, and I'll throw this to all the ladies, how do we actually convince the CEOs and the C-suite to actually buy into our vision and truly solve a problem that hasn't even been invented or experienced yet?
I love that question. I can jump in and then I'll pass it on to Monica and Michelle. So what have really worked for me is to go to the CEO or anybody in the organization with a roadmap. You want to break it down in bite size so that people can see that, okay, they don't have to solve this big elephant at once. They can solve it bits by bit, and then you will provide them continual progress to plan. Usually when you do the break it down and then you give people, okay, let's try with something that you are very familiar with. People usually buy in. It's when we come in with the big organization with all those plans, we're like, okay, we're going to retrofit your whole organization. People freak out because we're like, okay, what am I going to do while all those changes are going? So I think breaking it down into a roadmap is, adjustable roadmap is super helpful. What about you, Monica?
Yeah, thanks, Edwige, for pointing that out. The way I look at the digital transformation, people say, like, how can we make it smooth, frictionless, convince our, leaders? It's a very hard problem, very, very hard problem. But what I can tell you is, because we are having more moving pieces around technology, moving pieces around stakeholders engagement, and we at the same time we are trying to keep the culture intact for the team, for the organization itself. So what we should do is focus on three big areas. Like why do we need to do it? We should not be doing things just because the whole world is doing it, right? So why is really important, means what pain points we are trying to address. That's really important. Also understanding who is your audience, who is going to be consuming this thing, because knowing your customer, knowing your audience is really important. And then what are the levers which you are going to use? So identify few of them which can take for a larger impact, because digital transformation, I can tell you, people normally put multiple work streams and they don't talk to each other, and that becomes a really big problem. And then how are you going to measure the ROI, which is really, really important in digital transformation, because billions of dollars get spent. And then if you are not clear about how you are going to measure the ROI, the digital transformation, it's very, very hard to measure. So those are the things which we need to really carve out upfront when you go to convince anybody or even convince your stakeholders and convince your organization, people who are actually going to be doing that or helping you in this journey.
Michelle.
Hi, I like that, Edwige. I like that analogy about how do you eat an elephant, one chunk at a time. So I think it's really important. I think visualizing the art of the possible and where things are going and where things are moving and really building out that segment so that you've got the visualization on where the market is going and how important it is for you to be sort of leading edge, bleeding edge, where you need to be for the value of your organization. I also think, Monica, your point around business casing and the return on the investment that you make, where the trade-offs are, and for us sort of being technologists and where we sit in the organization, it's having the business partners really take accountability for believing in that and partnering with technology, right? It's not what did technology do to us or why didn't you do this? It's how are we going to get there together? And I think that you can't get on any of these journeys unless you are really lockstep. And it's not us just taking orders and delivering. It's really being in partner.
I love that. I think all of you from your different experiences kind of cohesively brought the holy grail of an answer to this. I don't think I've actually heard each one of those answers in one room before. So I know that was a huge gem. I did actually write notes myself. So thank you for that. Seriously, thank you. All right. Well, Michelle, I'm going to throw it to you now. Talent doesn't want to go back to the office. What does that mean for attracting talent? And what does it mean for management when your team is located globally?
Yeah, that's something that we're really grappling with. And I think, Edwige, you look like you're in the office right now. And so, yeah, I was in yesterday. I'm going in tomorrow. And so I think it depends if you're with a technology company that has moved completely remotely or with, if you're with some of the bigger organizations where FaceTime is still important. And with our investment businesses, they're in sort of a minimum of 3 days a week now. Travel has started up again. And in Canada, we are further behind. We are still very much in the next wave. And so we've gotten over a lot of COVID cases, but people are still getting it. And so there's a lot of hesitancy to go back to the office. What I do know is that not only did we go through a massive transformation during COVID, but we also hit all of our scorecard targets. So it's really hard to prove to my organization that we need to go back when we are crushing it on all our metrics. And so that's really hard. But what I do appreciate is that it's starting to feel a little bit self-indulgent to build relationships over camera. And so the chatter has stopped, the relationship building. And so going back into the office and having those water cooler moments or grabbing a coffee or something is really, I think it's really important. And for me, it's nice to get out of my house and not have everybody know where mom is at all times. But I do think that this hybrid model and figuring out how we're going to work with some people remote at all times is going to be really important. But I think we are going to have a really hard time competing with some devs that don't want to go back, QA. We've got real pockets of our organization that are not interested in being in the office. And I think that we're going to have to come to terms with which roles can be remote, how often do they need to come in, and how are we going to work? Because I think we're going to have a real problem attracting and potentially retaining talent over time too.
This is such a big issue, right? So nobody has an answer to it. I think we're not going to go back to the new normal, or it's going to be such a difficult way to figure it out, and then it's going to be very customized based on different companies. So I'm really looking forward to see what our new normal will be and how we will become. Because for me, coming to the office is like my sanctuary, because I have a house full of, I have 2 dogs, my mom, the boys. So I need to decouple it and come to the office so that I can focus. But I know a lot of people that do very well at home. So how do you find a hybrid and then you still perform and still deliver maximum success for the company? So it's going to be very interesting.
Yeah, I think hybrid model, and most important is moments that matter for your team is really, really important because every team will be functioning at a different pace. And this is the best time to reflect back. Like, I think everybody has realized, to Michelle's point, the numbers are, going really high in terms of, meeting your targets. But at the same time, people do understand, like, having this hybrid model or having like fully remote has definitely proven some of the myths, like, hey, you have to be in the office to meet the goals, right? So it's a plus for many things as well, I would say.
Yeah, and in particular with my organization, I have a completely decentralized team all over the world. And so it's really hard to try to convince everyone to, be local to one area, because to me, it's talent, right?
Mhm.
I want to find the best talent all over the world, no matter where they're at. But the way that I've solved that problem is we do a biannual retreat that I fly everyone out to, and we as a team choose which cities we go to every single year. So we will be heading out actually to our annual retreat in a few weeks. And so everyone's gearing up and excited. So we're all going to be together. And this is the first time they will ever see each other, because I have a team in Poland as well. So I'm flying everyone out. This is the first time everyone is going to be together. So they're really jazzed. And so I definitely see the positive sides of it, but they also like having that flexibility of being with their family and stuff too. I feel like there's probably a use case for maybe utilizing flex office spaces. So not necessarily having permanent office spaces, but having partnerships with, large organizations, maybe your Regis's or WeWorks or whatever, and maybe, borrowing some flex office space. I think that is maybe where we're heading in the future. But I think each organization has their own culture they have to identify with and figure out. So awesome. All right. So this is going to be kind of a team question. As a leader, what are the important things to keep in mind during digital transformation integration that will keep culture and the team front and center? And I feel like we kind of talked a little bit about it, but if there's specific characteristics or core beliefs that you want to touch on, I think this would be a great place to say something. So let's start with Michelle.
Yeah, I think that for me over the last, sort of since 2014 and evolving and what matters to people and really figuring out that the true empowerment is with our squads and our persistent agile teams that have been set up, giving the power to them. And so having the entrepreneurship, the empowerment of those squads, and really making sure that the businesses come to the fore and have this business partner mentality and putting the accountability, as I mentioned, back on them. I think that having the ROI that was mentioned and really holding businesses to this. So when we get to this place, we are going to realize X benefit, I think is really important. And so that's something that's really important to me. As I've gone through this sort of real transformation that's coupled with a cultural transformation, I feel incredibly empowered by my organization, as we've talked about, to bring my entire self to work. And so heading up our employee resource group, the Women at Teachers group, we've started talking about things that are otherwise not talked about in office places too. So we have a women's health series that we do in partnership with the Cleveland Clinic. And so we're starting to talk about fertility issues and child loss and menopause and like things you would never talk about anywhere else. And so I think it's really establishing this culture of authenticity and transparency, and knowing that, as Edwige mentioned, her 4 sons and her mother, right? We're all going to be going through all these different things in our lives, which have been so much more apparent with us working at home. And so how do we get to this place where it's normalized and where you can go off to your kid's football game or dance recital at 4:00 in the afternoon, but there's still the trust that's built around, I trust you as an adult that you're going to do your work. And I think we're at this real turning point with this ability for the only time in our career to start having this hybrid and getting the best of all worlds. And I think culture is really going to be a place that we compete in the future. And it's really important to me at this stage of my career to be in a place where people want to come and want to stay. And so that's really important to me.
Thank you so much, Michelle. Monica, let's go with you.
Michelle, I'm like so touched by all the stuff you said today, because the reality is this, beyond just leaders, everybody is a human, right? And so that's really, really important. And it gets very challenging for women because we take so many things on our shoulders, driving, our own investments for our teams at work and also, at home. So that's really important. But any transformation we deal with, it's hard, personally or professionally. And we need to do it with care. So that's really, really important. And if you are a part of this journey, first and foremost, if we look at from a professional front, it is really important to have some right savvy leaders who do understand beyond technology, beyond, the moving pieces, just like the whole sentiment behind this transformation. That's really important. And then investing in your people, investing in yourself also, because you want to grow the talent to set for future, whether they stay with you or whether they go somewhere else, because that's what is all relationships and connections which we build. That's really important. You touched on empowerment, which is really important, but I would double down on empowerment and appreciation, because most of the times, we forget to appreciate for all the good work. So it's really important that it goes in a long way for the team across the board. And then frequent communication, sometimes over communication, and it becomes really, really important, especially in this hybrid world. We tend to forget, or we tend to assume that people will read from Slack channels, but go take time to over communicate, repeat sometimes. So I would say, in summarizing, my whole narrative is like, do accelerate, which is really important, but accelerate with care, for personal investment and professional both. That's the way I would end.
I love that, Monica. Edwidge, do you have any thoughts?
I mean, Michelle and Monica kind of like covered. If I have one thing, and what I usually do myself is trying to find a way to familiarize it. So usually, as Monica said, when people hear digital transformation, is very scary. So the key is try to find something very familiar that you guys can start with small. And I do believe, and then I love what Michelle say. I always tell my team, what do you want to become when you grow up? Kind of conversation, like, what do we want to become when we grow up? When we finish this transformation, what degree we're gonna get? And then you create that North Star. So people, because they're gonna get tired. You're gonna get confused, you're gonna get tired, you're gonna feel like you're gonna give up. And I keep reminding them, hey, remember graduation time is coming. Graduation time is coming, and we're gonna become this organization that we all desire to be. And I think, if you make it light and relax and find those moments, Monica, I call it surprise and delight, where we work for 36 hours straight, and they come, and then there's ice cream. Just take a breather, and then go back again for another 36 hours. So I would say, find the surprise and delight. Find a way to remind everybody of the North Star. Who do we want to be when you grow up? Kind of conversation, and along the way, add more transparency and communication. So
that is absolutely so true. One thing I would probably add for me would be access. One of the things, because I'm new into my role, only a few months here at ActOne Group, and one of the biggest things that was kind of a culture shock to me in inserting myself into my current team was that from previous leadership, my team didn't have access to that leader. And so it was very hierarchical. And that's one of the things that I break down that barrier immediately. Like, everyone has access to me no matter what. Yes, I put boundaries around it, but at the end of the day, I check in with every single one of my team members and want to make sure that they're taken care of, they are heard, they are seen, and that they know that I absolutely value what they bring to the table. And just that alone, has done absolute wonders. And even with the other executives from the other companies, they just were appreciative that, hey, like, you actually want to talk to me and like listen to what my ideas are. I know you're marketing, but just that goes such a long way. In that humanistic side, like, I'm all about being very real of my own personality, and I just level set with you. We have real conversations. There is no, fancy words or anything around it. Let's just get to the nitty gritty and just know I have your back, and let's do this. And I think that brings down that wall, or that hesitation of, that trust, as Michelle was saying, is gaining trust. To me, I just do it and saying, I'm a human too. Let's just figure it out together. And I think that helps break down those barriers. So that's just my little 2 cents on that.
No, I'll echo that, Nancy. Engagement leads to higher trust, and you can easily see the results. So yes, it takes time, and to your point, like, a lot of times, employees think that, so-and-so is at that level, will they have time? And I always tell them, keep the title aside for a minute. I'm here to help out and partner with you. Think from that lens and let's talk.
Absolutely. So I know all of you kind of do the same thing too. That was kind of my thing. I was like, let's just add that in there. All right. So we've got 10 more minutes. We have a few extra questions that I can add in. I don't see any questions in the chat. So if any of y'all have any questions you want to pop in, you can either put it in the chat or in the Q&A section under our tab that says session. I'll check on that, but we have quite a few other questions that we can also throw in. So
Jenny just asked one in the chat.
Let's see. Got it. All right. So Jenny asks, what's the most valuable piece of constructive criticism or radical candor you received in your career, and how do you action it, if at all? Good question.
It's a good one. I'll go. Because I spent 12 years of management consulting, I was constantly getting my butt handed to me. And so the first one was when I came out of my MBA and I was working for an airline in bankruptcy, and I had not done a lot of modeling in Excel, and I was told that I was basically garbage at it. And this is 2005. And I was handed an Excel textbook, and I was told that I needed to read all 72 chapters and do the tests that they gave new analysts, so people coming out of undergrad. And I was totally upset and really taken aback. And I was like, how dare you, whatever. And then I got freaked out because I was like, I don't know if I can do this. So I was like, okay, if this is the next wall that I have to climb to get onto the stuff I really want to do, I'm just going to do it. And so put my head down, worked at it, and it's all been fine from there. But I think it's really hard to hold that mirror up that's constantly, I mean, a lot of organizations won't give you feedback. And I think there's been a lot of very passive aggressive places that I've worked in my career where it's just, they won't tell you to your face. You might hear it, around the office. But I think really listening and becoming self-reflective and just being like, okay, this is what I need to fix. What got me here is not going to get me there, and move on. So that was something a long time ago, but it hit deep.
Yeah,
definitely have this experience. Go ahead, Monica.
One thing I would say is which really hit me is as you grow up in your chain as an IC or as a manager, you always want to do your best, and you also want to make sure you always try to make everybody happy, right? And the goal is it takes a while to understand your job is not to make everyone happy. Your job is to do the right thing for the team, and also do a ruthless prioritization in terms of what things we will do. But don't forget about writing down what things you will not do, because most of the times we focus on that, and then there is a scope creep, and it does hurt the team more than you are accountable, but it hurts your team. So this is something I learned a long time back in my career, and I always make sure whenever I'm planning or whenever I'm doing strategic initiatives for the team, we look from that lens as well. And remind the team also, because the things don't stop at your level. You have to continuously remind your teams as well.
Edwidge.
Sure. So as I was listening to Michelle, I remember vividly, probably 10 years ago, when we were going through an integration, and I was getting tons of email from different C-level. And I was like, well, I'm going to respond later. I'm going to respond by the end of the day. And one of the SVP at the time came and was like, Edwige, you have no sense of urgency. And I immediately felt so small. I'm like, what do you mean? It's I sent you an email this morning and it's not 3:00. I was like, well, I received so many emails. I was going to take my time to respond. And he was like, well, what you do is you acknowledge. So now I have all my little notes. I just copy and paste. When the email comes, email acknowledge, I will respond in a little bit. That little bit acknowledgement just get people like, yes, she got me. She saw me. I've been seen. I've been heard. So if one advice I can give to anybody on this call, if you want to create a sense of urgency or the perception that you have a sense of urgency, acknowledge all your bosses, because we all work for 20,000 people. all your boss's email, and even if a person, person doesn't matter, take a minute to say, email acknowledge, I will respond in a couple of days or something. That goes a long way. That was one of the biggest lessons I've learned. So this is one big advice I can give.
And it's so funny how people think that an email is a doorbell, right? An email is not a doorbell. It's like if you need a doorbell to Teams, there's a phone. An email is just an email, and yes, you will get back to them.
I'll tell you, like, I work at Okta and Auth0 business unit. Our lives revolve on Slack. We get emails, but most of the conversations happen on Slack, and Slack has a very little tiny feature of acknowledge. So if you are not going, and remind, so that you don't forget. So normally when I have to respond to many things at the evening, I put them as a reminder for me, and it is a bot which will tell me like, hey, you have to answer all of these. So at the end of the day, but I do put ACK every time, I see something like, okay, I've seen it, I will respond back to it. And then if it is urgent from my end, I normally mark it urgent in the message so that the teams can accordingly take the call. So that's really important.
I love that. So I'll kind of share quickly. This actually just happened last week. As I mentioned, I'm new into this role a few months, and I'm working on this really kind of tight-lipped project with a certain executive. So it was one of those big moments of I got an invite to that table, right? And having everyone, wanting my opinions and my thoughts and all that stuff. So I figured out why I was in that meeting so that I can make the PowerPoints and I can make all the visuals and I can make all the documents and take all the notes, right? They didn't want to do it. They wanted me to do it. And I'm totally fine with that. But the part of it is I'm still learning the tech behind some of our products, right? And so they're asking me to basically be a complete expert in this and say, okay, here you go. Oh, and let's do this after we had an 8-hour straight Zoom meeting. So now let's do it at 10 o'clock at night and do it and produce this by the next morning, right? And so, having a meeting the next morning, and I am telling you, they completely ripped everything apart, completely sentence by sentence in front of me, and it was totally fine. And the first thing that happened after that meeting, one of the VPs, she called me. She's like, I hope you did not take that stuff personally. I was like, what are you talking about? Why would I? I mean, I'm new. I don't know what I'm doing over here with all this stuff over here, right? And I said, I actually appreciate the feedback because now we actually have gold and we have the content we need. And I said, thank you for that. I would not have been able to accomplish all these things without you guys. And so for my piece of advice, it's understand that part of this journey, other people are trying to help you, but in their way. And sometimes it might be very abrasive because that's who they are. So receive their advice or their help or their comments or their opinions at that threshold, and you take it in the way you need to, right? Your experience is different than theirs in that same room or in that same meeting. So at the end of the day, you have to always keep that in mind of, okay, they probably said this, but it might not be what they meant at that moment. Get clarification. Always get clarification. And to me, that has completely, I've saved myself from so many headaches, so many miscommunications, so many unsent emails that you can imagine. So,
Nancy, I would add one thing to this, and I think you will all appreciate this. Recently, we read a book, The Advantage, and it's an amazing book. I would highly recommend if you're running organizations. There's a concept of first team, which is your peer team. Basically, your peers is your first team, not your direct team. So lean on to your first team to give you critical feedback, because that's where whole strategies are coming together. All the strategies are coming together and they can see from a different lens. And I do this for my organization, for my teams, like teams under me, and they are just thriving. This also builds a lot of trust between the different leaders within your team as well. And it removes a lot of headache on you as a leader for that team. So it's really important, the concept of first team.
Thank you, Monica, for that. And I think we're at about time. So I want to thank you all, ladies, for this amazingly progressive conversation. I know a lot of this was groundbreaking that we've never heard of before, but I loved every second of it. So for everyone that's with us, that's watching, please connect with us. I will hang out for a few minutes in this session. If you want to ping me, ask any questions, network later. But I think the best way is connect with us on LinkedIn. Yeah?
Yeah.
All right, so you see our names on the screen. If you want to screenshot right now and connect with us later. I'm just super excited to have been in this room with all of you, and have a great week, everyone, and we will see you later.
Thank you. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.
Lady, are you hanging out for a couple of minutes?
I'm going to hang out for a little bit, so I'm just going to mute myself, and if anyone wants to ask questions, I'll hang out.
Can we retake the picture, because I'm not sure if the picture was here earlier. So I'm like, if Nancy, you're gonna put this on LinkedIn, I need to be like,
Okay, all right. So let's get ourselves our good sides, yeah?
okay.
I don't know what that
Okay,
is.
I'm gonna count 1, 2, 3 then, yeah?
Are we looking
Okay,
at the camera? I'm
one.
looking at here.
Look at your camera. There you go. Okay, 1, 2, 3. Perfect. Let me make sure I got it.
Are we all
Somebody said they
smiling?
witnessed the first
Got
person
it.
picture and it was good.
It was good. Yes.
All right, lady. It was such a pleasure. It was such a treat to
That's
be
so
connected
nice.
with you. I hope that we stay connected for life.
Yes.
You know,
Yes.
you know, this thing is like, it gets sticky at the top, and then you need people that can relate, that you can talk to. So Michelle, Monica, Nancy, thank you so much. I love you guys, and you did amazing. Take
Thank
care.
you.
Thank you.
Bye,
guys.
Bye.
Bye.